there are so many 2021 releases. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Now for today's video, I'm going to be doing my 2021 most anticipated historical romance releases. Now I know a lot of people have already done their 2021 most anticipated reads, but I thought that I would go deeper into a subgenre that I love a lot and I know that a lot of people that follow me actually really like, which is historical romance. Now these releases, around 15 of them that I've gathered so far, are releasing from January all the way to July. So let's get started so that you guys can know which books that you should add to your TBRs today. So these books that I'm going to be talking about are not in any particular order, but I will let you know the publication dates so you guys are familiar which one kind of goes first. So the first book that I want to recommend to you is actually from one of my favorite historical romance authors called Lorraine Heath, and her latest book called Scourge of My Heart. This one is actually the first book in Once Upon a Dukedom series, and this one follows two characters named Catherine and Griffith. Basically, Catherine is in love with his older brother, and she actually asks our main character Griffith to help her get the attention of his older brother. And when that successfully goes through, Griffith feels very bitter about himself because he's the spare to the dukedom. He'll never be able to give what Catherine deserves in life, is what he feels like. So this is kind of like an unlikely romance between these two characters, as well as kind of like a taboo romance where, you know, he ultimately tries to steal his older brother's potential wife. The second book that I feel like that I'm pretty excited for is another book from Eloisa James. I know me and her don't really have the best relationship, but I just kind of really adore her covers, and I've already started collecting most of her books in this series, so I decided why not to put it in my most anticipated releases, because I probably already pre-ordered this one already. This one's called Wild Child, and this is book number 6 in the Wilds of Lindo Castle series. This one follows a main heroine who is actually an actress. She actually comes from a line of scandal. Her mom actually cheated on her husband and then gave birth to her. She kind of already has kind of like a messed up background in history, and people are already spreading a lot of rumors about her. So her becoming an actress is kind of scandalous too as well. Our main hero actually can't stand our heroine, but he also has a protective streak inside him that he always wants to try to protect her no matter what the danger is. And this is kind of their unlikely love story. The next book that I'm kind of excited for is actually from a new to me author. Her name is Lisa Byrne, and this one is called The Worst Duke in the World. This one follows kind of like the single father trope. Our Duke is actually a single father to an 8-year-old son. He kind of has a house that's filled with a lot of noise and vibrant colors, and he lives a very rambunctious life where he tries to take care of his 8-year-old son, who kind of constantly gets himself into trouble, but also likes to enjoy his childhood and have fun and live a normal childhood life. What our main hero actually wants to do is that he wants to find a suitable woman to give birth to a spare to the heir of the dukedom, just in case his son, something happens to him. And the last thing he expects is actually to fall in love with a girl that kind of comes up to his doorsteps and befriends his son, and he falls in love with this girl. So I'm excited to read this romance. I think it's going to be very sweet. I especially love single father romances and historical romances. So the next book that I want to recommend to you is Waiting for a Scot Like You by Eva Leigh. This one kind of follows the trope of opposites attract. Our main hero is very stoic. He's described to be as very serious because he's a soldier, and he wants to make sure that the person he's protecting is safe. So he's a really strict rule follower. The last person that he wants to protect is someone that always breaks the rules, who always gets himself into trouble, and that just so happens to be our main heroine, who just wants to go and have fun and go on this kind of like road trip to like a different like town in a different city. This one is kind of like a bodyguard romance where he is being paid to protect her and to make sure that she is staying safe. So throw in a lot of dangerous situations, throw in a lot of chaotic messes, and we got these two people falling in love in a very tight carriage space. So the next anticipated read is actually The Heiress Hunt by Joanna Shoup. This one comes out in March 2021, and this follows a kind of childhood best friends to lovers romance. This one follows a male hero who realizes that his family is left destitute after his father's death, and his father has gambled away kind of like the family's fortunes and things like that. So he desperately needs to marry someone rich, so he needs the help of his childhood best friend to help him find a suitable wife. Our childhood best friend has to find it within herself to forgive our hero, because our hero actually left her all alone back in England when he went to go travel the world, and our main heroine actually moved on from her childhood crush. So this one's kind of like a forbidden romance as well as a childhood best friends to lovers romance that I'm excited to read too as well. It sounds like it's going to be very angsty because she's described to help him find a suitable wife, but also having her heart being torn apart every time she sees him with someone else. So the next romance that I'm highly anticipating is actually one that is a Western historical romance. This one is called Wild Rain by Beverly Jenkins, and this follows a character who is taking care of a ranch. She is taking care of the ranch because it's her family's ranch, and then she meets our hero, who is actually a reporter back in Washington. He travels all the way across the country to go and interview her uncle, and this is kind of their love story where they meet even though they live thousands of miles apart. I'm excited to read this book because Beverly Jenkins is known to be an excellent historical romance author who really has great series and great books that a lot of people should check out and read. So the next book that I want to talk about is actually the latest release from Kathy Maxwell. This one's called Her First Desire, and it comes out in April 2021. This follows two characters who are kind of in an enemies to lovers romance. Our two main characters are fighting over a piece of property that she claims that she has inherited, and he already claimed that he owns this piece of property. They both have very different ideas of what to do with the property, and they actually have to duke it out and fight it out. The landlord is kind of stuck in the middle, not knowing what to do. So I feel like that this one's going to be a fun and flirty romance between these two characters who have to learn to get to know each other and to learn to get along with each other. So the next book that I'm very excited for is actually called A Wicked Bargain for the Duke by Megan Frampton, and this one comes out in April 2021. This one follows our male hero who really needs an heir, and he needs to marry very quickly, so he decides to kind of court this girl. And what happens is that the girl's older sister kind of comes into play and stops this kind of courting season from happening, simply because our older sister doesn't trust him. And then when they're caught in a very compromising position, they have to save their reputations by being forced into a marriage. And this one's kind of like a enemies to lovers romance, a marriage of convenience trope too as well. So the next book that I'm very excited that I want to read is actually a book from an author that I haven't heard before. I think this one may be her first novel from Avon Romance. I'm not too sure. This one is called The Scot Who Loved Me by Gina Conkle. And this one follows a female heroine who is actually kind of undercover in England, and she's trying to return the Scotland's treasures back to Scotland. So she's kind of in England as under disguise. And what happens is that our main hero is trapped and put into jail in England for the fact that he is Scottish. And this is kind of their second chance romance as well, because our main hero thinks that our heroine actually abandoned him and left him to fend for himself in Scotland, when that can be further from the truth. So the next book that I want to talk about is a book that's releasing in June 2021. This one is from Vivian Lorette, and this one's called The Wrong Marquess. And basically our main female heroine is pining after someone next door, and she's pining all these years, but she's starting to kind of like grow hopeless and think that he'll never return the same love that she has for him. And then what happens is that we have a meddling hero that kind of comes into picture, and he is actually in love with our heroine, and he is in love with her quirky ways. He's in love with her being very opinionated and also shy at the same time. And then this is kind of their love story where our hero is trying to convince our heroine that the right person for her is actually him and not the person next door that she's been in love with for all her life. So the next book that I'm very excited for is actually a book that's also coming out in June 2021. This one is from Caroline Linden, called A Scot to the Heart, and this one follows a character who is a soldier. He's our hero, and he thinks that he's kind of just a soldier, but what really happens is that he's actually a long lost duke, and he just inherited a dukedom. He's going to be really wealthy and really rich. Back when he was a soldier, he actually met a female girl, and it's our main heroine, and then they have like this kind of like romantic whirlwind romance. But then what happens is that she realizes that he's a duke, and then she thinks that she doesn't have a chance with him anymore. So this is kind of their romance between two characters who are kind of navigating new waters and figuring out themselves. So I'm excited to read this book. I have a couple of Caroline's books on my shelves that I haven't read yet, but I've heard good things about her romances and I see good reviews. So I'm excited to check her out. The next book that I'm excited for is actually a book that comes out in July 2021. This is from a very well-known historical romance author called Lisa Kleypas, and this one is called Devil in Disguise. There's no cover for it yet, but I'm sure it's going to be very gorgeous. This actually follows a main character who is actually a widow, and she owns like kind of this business herself. It's her husband's business, but she inherited it from her husband's death. And this one is a shipping company. And the last person she expects to be attracted to is to this whiskey distiller person. and this one is kind of like a very hot opposites attract romance. This one also feels like it's going to include elements of suspense and danger as well, because our main hero is actually being hunted down and there are people that are trying to kill him. So obviously our main female character is also in danger the closer she sticks to him. So the next book that I'm very highly anticipating is actually another release coming out in July 2021. This one is from Sophie Jordan, one of my favorite historical romance authors out there. Her latest release called The Duke Goes Down, and basically our main hero is supposed to like inherit his dukedom. He's supposed to be a duke, but what happens is that scandal plagues his family when the public realizes that he's been born before the marriage of his parents, so therefore he's not eligible to inherit the dukedom. So now he's kind of poor, and now he needs to marry an heiress very quickly because he is missing his lifestyle. So what happens is that he's trying to charm and persuade heiresses to fall in love with him so that he can marry for their riches. But our main female heroine is actually not a very wealthy person, and she is there trying to protect the heiresses, and she is trying to prevent him from really seducing these girls who are so young and so naive. And this is the romance between these two people. So the last book in this video that I want to talk about is actually a book from Diana Quincy. This one's called The Viscount Made Me Do It, and it comes out in July 2021. This follows a girl who is actually a bone setter, and she is born from Arab merchants. And this one is already like this already sounds really fun too as well, because our main heroine is a very strong and independent woman who is very smart, obviously, because she is a bone setter. But what happens is that our main hero, who is actually a soldier, actually comes into her practice and demands for answers, because our hero is actually accused of killing his parents, and the true killer of his parents is still out there and still causing him a lot of trouble and a lot of grief. And somebody has mysteriously tipped him that this bone setter, who is our heroine, actually has an idea of who actually killed his parents. So this one seems like it's going to follow a bit of mystery and a lot of angst too as well, between two characters who are very unlikely to be together, but they obviously fall in love with each other. But anyways, that is it for all my highly anticipated 2021 historical romance releases that I'm so excited for, that I have pre-ordered a bunch already. But let me know in the comments which one are your favorites, which authors I missed. I know there's a Tessa Dare novel coming somewhere. We don't know if it's actually going to come out in 2021. Her fourth book is delayed, and my friends are telling me that she might have possibly not have finished writing the book yet. But it breaks my heart, because Tessa Dare is one of my favorite historical romance authors, and I thought that her latest book will come out in February 2021, but it has since been pushed back. But we shall keep an eye out on it, because we love Tessa Dare. But anyways, that is it for all the books, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.